The Immigrant Identity Coalition here today with you to talk a little bit about what is happening in Cincinnati and what is happening with the immigrant community and the churches and unions and community groups that our immigrant communities are already a part of. How are they responding to changes at the federal and the state level to policies that are going to target increasingly our immigrant friends, neighbors, and co-parishioners, and so forth. So Allison and I are going to give you all a little bit of an introduction to what the coalition is, how the coalition came together, and talk a little bit about who's in that coalition. There should be a handout in front of you that lists kind of the overall plan and the current coalition members. And just a quick show of hands, how many of you are part of a group that's working on advocating for or helping to protect immigrants in our community? 1, 2, half the room. That's remarkable. I really think that this can be really a dialogue about this coalition, what it's doing, and hearing from you all who are active in this work in different ways. So some of you may know that in 2017 there was a change in administration. The outgoing administration actually set a record for deporting our friends and neighbors. The incoming administration, the new administration, would like to set a new record in deporting our friends and neighbors. There are 11 million undocumented immigrants, and many of them are members of our churches, members of our organizations, members of our unions. And splitting families apart, splitting our parishes apart, splitting our synagogues apart, splitting our unions apart is not acceptable. The communities are not going to let it happen, and we certainly aren't going to let it happen without real meaningful and principled confrontation. And this coalition came together to try to find a way for different groups to make this sort of confrontation real and to do it as a team. So just a little bit of background I think would be helpful for folks, because this is not the first time that people in Cincinnati have come together to have a coalition to protect immigrants. I think what makes this coalition different is and new, kind of be helpful to know a little bit about what happened in the past. So in the past, the local communities that came together were always fighting for immigration reform, right? And because our immigration laws are principally set at the federal level, then all of those campaigns, all that work was designed to what? Get comprehensive immigration reform that would create some real solutions and create a pathway to citizenship for our friends and neighbors and coworkers. So most people know that there's been 30 years since there's been comprehensive immigration reform. And we didn't get it in the prior administration, and it doesn't look like we're going to get that comprehensive federal immigration reform anytime soon. So what's happened is that a lot of the groups that are working together to try to address that federal issue decided to bring their work at the local level together and to coordinate a little bit more. So for as long as ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is intent on deporting our friends and neighbors, many of whom have families here, many of whom have citizens who are children here, there is going to be a pipeline for deporting folks. And so that pipeline is primarily made up of local law enforcement. So most people are getting themselves deported not because ICE is running around and doing a sting operation. Most of our members and co-workers and co-parishioners are finding themselves deported because they come into contact with the local law enforcement agencies. So the thrust for us in this community was, how can we make changes at the local level, right, to respond to this crisis at the federal level? And so people like Susan Noonan, who's here in this room with the Women's City Club, people like Kurt Grossman with the AJC, people like Peg Fox with Mark, and others had for years been working with the local sheriffs and the local Cincinnati police departments to change those policies and how they work. And that coalition worked with our Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center and Cincinnati Interfaith Worker Center to try to create some changes in how the police immigrant communities. And so that work was going on while the federal work was going on. And so what we're trying to do with this Immigrant Dignity Coalition is to bring together the different folks who are working on it. And of course, some of you may know the diocese has an immigration task force that's an ecumenical group that's parish-based, where different churches are working on how they can connect their own parishes to the advocacy and immigrant protection work that's going on, both to protect the parishioners themselves, but also to mobilize and to activate all of us who want to protect our immigrant neighbors to how we can do that within our own parishes. So there's parish-based work that's been done, there's kind of political federal work that's been done, there's policy work that's been done at the local level, and what we're hoping to do with the Immigrant Dignity Coalition is to create a common platform and way of working at the local level for confronting those things. And Allison's going to tell you a little bit more about kind of the mechanics of how this whole thing came together.